like during namaz or tarawih or listening to Quran Sharif, when mind wanders
Hmm.
or doing zikr, or
Yeah.
how how to deal
Like
with that?
focus.
Yes.
Um, a couple of things. One, that's a human thing. This is not like it's not. The fact that you're in prayer and the fact that you're in is a good sign. And so don't let that discourage you, because that everybody has to deal with that. There are certain things that can be done. You need to train your mind to focus. A lot of people can't read anymore because they have that problem. Their mind wanders when they read. One of the things to do is that when you read is to really focus, like keep attentive in your reading. Don't let your mind wander, because the mind is something that you can master. It's not something that can't be tamed, but it's difficult and it takes time. And so there are things that you can do, types of tarkeez, ways of keeping focus. The Prophet ﷺ, one of the most important things to do is to be present in your wudu. Like, a lot of people don't do wudu as an ibadah, they do it as as an addendum to their ibadah, whereas wudu is actually an act of ibadah. And so and Ahmed Zarruq says that the degree of your presence in your wudu will facilitate the degree of your presence in your prayer. So one of the things, because I did not really learn how to do wudu until I was with the Mauritanians. Marabt al-Hajj's wudu was amazing to watch him. And there's actually online, there's a Sheikh Khatri, I think, did a wudu very similar to Marabt al-Hajj's. But it was an act of ibadah, and he was so present in his wudu. And so being present in the wudu is really important. Also doing the mu'awwidhatayn before you go into the prayer. So actually doing the Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq and Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas is something that some of the scholars have recommended to do that. And then just to pull one of the things, obviously, if you're not an Arabic speaker, the Quran, it has its own power just in the sounds. And I mentioned this the other day. Just, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Alif Lam Mim. I don't know what that means, but it's Quran and it's ibadah. And so just the sounds of the Quran have an effect on the heart. And then also doing the prayer on the Prophet ﷺ is very useful. The ulama say to get rid of waswasa is the best thing that gets rid of waswasa is dhikr of Allah, and just keeping your tongue moist with the dhikr, trying to remember. One of the things, and I struggle with this, but I've been for years really trying to adhere as much as I can to what are called the ad'iyat al-ahwal, the du'as of occasional prayers. So the supplications that the Prophet, like when I come into the masjid, Bismillah, Allahumma iftah abwab rahmatika. When I go out of the masjid, left foot first. Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlika. Like, I try to do that every time I come into a prayer space. I don't always remember, alhamdulillah, most of the time I do, but I don't always. But just being conscious throughout the day of the things you do. When the Prophet got up, the first thing he did was he made a prayer. It was the first thing he did when you wake up. The Prophet, the very first thing he did, he recited inna fi khalq as-samawat, inna fi khalq as-samawati wal ard wa ikhtilaf al-layl wan nahar la-ayatin. He recited those verses every morning when he woke up. He'd go out and look at the stars, and he would recite those verses. So the Prophet ﷺ, his life was a life of constant contemplation and reflection. And so those are things that anybody can do, but it takes conscious effort. It's just not gonna happen like that. It's work to tame your mind. Some of the other traditions call it the monkey mind, riding the tiger. There's different terms for it, but this is a human problem, and it's been around for a very long time. And we're a very distracted species. We're distracted very easily. Distractibility is a hallmark of just being human. And so learning how to focus is one of the most important tasks that you can do. And the prayer, we forget that the prayer is practice. It's practice. It's something, it's mumarasa. It's something that you do on a daily basis and just try to be present. And I know the difference between, sometimes I've repeated prayers just because I know I just didn't have any presence in the prayer. So it's a problem. And now we have phones going off and ding, ring things, and just very difficult. Any other?
Thank you. So you mentioned the hadith about following the footsteps of those who came before, and when you look at where they are now, and you look at where our ummah is now, how can we know that? Like, how do we know how far are we going to follow them? Because they seem like they are on misguidance, and when you look at the state of the ummah, how do we know that we are not?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of problems in our community as a ummah, community as a ummah. And they've been going on for quite some time. I mean, you can probably, you can really see it. It's around 500 years of this decline. And the Prophet ﷺ told us these days would come, and he said the people that would be outliers would be given great rewards for being people that, he said that bada al-islamu ghariban, Sahih Muslim, bada al-islamu ghariban wa sayaudu kama bada ghariban fatuba lil-ghuraba. And then they asked who were not in that riwayah, but in another riwayah, they asked who were the ghuraba, he said Islam began as an alien thing, a strange thing. It was strange to the Arabs. And then it became normalized. He said, it will return a strange thing. And then he said, blessed are the strangers. And they say Tuba is a tree in paradise. And then he was asked who they were, and he said, الَّذِينَ يُصْلِحُونَ سُنَّتِي بَعْدَ مَا أَفْسَدَهَا النَّاسِ. Those who rectify my sunnah after people have corrupted it. So there's two things that you can gain from that. One, that islah is part of our religion, of rectifying, but also that the sunnah gets corrupted. I mean, one of the problems in our community, I think, is, you have traditionalists that get very ossified, and they hold on to things that aren't really from the religion, they're just from tradition. And so the people, there's another group who sees that and says, oh, that has nothing to do with the sunnah. And so now they reject all tradition because of that. Whereas the important thing is, I had one of my teachers say that if you imagine the religion of Islam a little bit like a massive ship, a great ship, and it's sinking, like, what do you put on the lifeboats? What books do you take with you? What do you want to save? And so we have to think about that just as a community. What are the most important things? And the single most important thing after Iman itself is prayer, and the centrality of the prayer. And I think we've just forgotten about how important the prayer is as an actual, so many people want to sing songs and do these things and have mawlids and have all, but the prayer is just an incredible act of worship, especially with the nawafil. I mean, the Prophet, he prayed 50 nafilah every single day. Because the original prayer was 50 prayers. He prayed 50 nafilah every single day. And it's quite stunning. When you go to Medina, one of the things that really strikes you about being in Medina is prayer's like a full-time job in Medina. Like there's time to eat and then pray. It's really quite stunning. And so the centrality of prayer and really working on our prayer, and also learning and education. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ said, لِأَنْ يَغْدُ أَحَدُكُمْ وَيَتَعْلَمَ آيَةً مِنْ آيَةِ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لَهُ مِنْ أَلْفِ رَكَعَةٍ. It's better to learn one ayah than pray 1,000 rakats. His religion, when he came in, the gathering, there were people studying and there were people doing dhikr. He sat with the people studying and he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا, I was sent to teach. It's not saying that the other thing was wrong, but he was a teacher and he was constantly teaching. And his religion is a religion of reason, intelligence. It's, emotions are supposed to be controlled. And you can see how emotional our community is. We're a very emotional community. One thing, just think about this. The Prophet ﷺ never called people names. We have all these Muslims that just call heads of state names. You cannot like a head of state, that's fine. But there's also the Prophet ﷺ, he had decorum. He was never, and so when the scholars do this, you can expect that from uneducated people. But when scholars do that, it's a very bad sign. There's just a lot of emotion and people not thinking, and there's reasons to be upset. I'm not going to deny that. There are reasons to be upset. We're all living through a really horrific time. We've seen, the horrors that I've seen just in my lifetime is just amazing. Over a million dead Iraqis in my lifetime. I saw Vietnam, so I remember Vietnam. And that was 2 million dead. Horrible napalm bombs, all these terrible things they did. The Viet Cong, when they would bomb them with napalm, which burns the skin, so they worked out that it wasn't waterproof. So if they went into water, it would stop the burning right away. So all the villages made big ponds. They dug things and put water so that when the napalm came, because the napalm was they sprayed it. It came down. It was just, it's gone on. So some scientists, probably in New Jersey or something, worked out how to have waterproof napalm. Why would you do that? Napalm's bad enough, but not even to give people, it's just evil. So these are all evil things. So we've seen a lot of evil, and we've been, I don't watch the news because I don't want to let things into my heart like that, because one, I'm a hypersensitive person, I get very sick physically, but two, I really want to be grateful, and Shaitan just wants to make everybody miserable and depress us. I don't want to get depressed, and so I know what's going on, and the Prophet said, نعم السلاح الدعاء والصبر. What an excellent weapon, prayer and patience. Because العاقبة للمتقين. This is just dunya. It's just dunya. And if people get too caught up in this place and not recognize it for what it is, they'll get lost. This is dunya. And I know enough of history. 50 million Indians probably starved to death during the British period. 50 million. Talk about a Holocaust. At least 20 million Russians killed under Stalin, at least 20 million. A lot of them Muslims. If you want to talk about the horrors of the world, I could go on all day about the horrors of the world. But there's also the marvels of the world and the beauties of the world and the amazing things about the world, and the tenacity of people despite everything. The display of the Palestinians that they've shown is just, it's inspired like a lot of people, even non-Muslims. It's just unbelievable. So these, I'm very anti-war. I really am very anti-war. But the Muslims, 500 years, we've been doing the same thing and getting the same results. Historically, the Muslims converted their enemies when they couldn't beat them. They say if you can't beat them, join them. The Muslims said if you can't beat them, convert them. That's what they did. The Mongols converted to Islam, the Ilkhanid. They became the defenders of Islam. Within 70 years it happened. And that means that there were people still alive that saw Baghdad completely devastated, that were probably praying next to people who were the children or the grandchildren of the people that conquered them. It's amazing. It was one of the things my dad said when he read the history of Islam. He told me, Islam conquers its conquerors. That's what he said. Islam conquers its conquerors. يَغْرِبُ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوهُمْ. Why have we lost that ability? The Arabs say, فَاقِدُ شَيْءٍ لَا يُعْطِي كُلُّ وِيَعًا بِمَا فِيهِ أَنْضَحُ. Every vessel can only pour forth what it contains. If all you have is emotion and anger and resentment, most people here, if they really knew what was going on, they would be opposed to it. We have to educate people. We have to, most people, and a lot of people are waking up to what's happening. But the Muslims, I think we need to really think about ourselves a lot more. We think too much about what's happening out there, and we don't think enough about rectifying our own selves. And the book that's just been translated into English, I would recommend everybody read it. In fact, I'm probably going to read it in the book club that we do. It's called The Generation of Salahuddin. And it really shows, it's an amazing book by this Jordanian scholar, Ersanan al-Jilani, or al-Kilani. He was a historian, and he wrote this amazing book. And he did it for Allah, and I think there's a real tawfiq in the book because he actually didn't want any copyright for it. He said anybody could publish it. Yeah. So he was very sincere in his, it's a really well written too. The English translation, I've only looked at it. It looks reasonably good. They got the title wrong. It's kind of ESL English, but the actual book is not bad.